Okay, now on to Joe Biden. It seems as though he threw Scott Morrison under the bus on the weekend, where he said it was a clumsy negotiation and wasn't handled with a lot of grace. I mean, that seems to be a criticism, at least, of the Australian government, and probably not just that, also his administration, and perhaps the Brits too. What was your read of that?
Look, Biden needs to keep the relationship between the US and France on an even keel. And frankly, Australia should be grateful that the US are doing their part to try and mollify the French. A small, few words that suddenly gets blown up into, Biden throws Morrison under the bus. If he didn't want to do the deal with Australia and get Australia to dump the French contract, he shouldn't have done the deal. This is just a bit of, again, political theatre between the US and France, so that all the other important issues that they work on together can continue as quickly as possible.
So he's just chucked out a couple of words there because he knows it's not serious between the US and Australia. We'll always be, good buddies, to use a simple term, purely to placate the French.
Yeah, it's all about just getting through the situation, a few mollifying words to the French. France-US relations go on. France flogs us a bit more, and eventually everyone will grow up and move on. And Australia should understand this is political theatre that has zero impact on the actual substance of this debate.
Yeah, okay. Just onto local politics before we go. Tim Smith's in strife. Can he survive?
Look, reading the tea leaves of what Matthew Guy had to say yesterday, I fear for where that discussion is going to go for Tim. I've met Tim many times. He's a character in Melbourne, and he's made a terrible mistake. He's unfortunately then tried to play it down, and the imagery of the car stuck in the fence, the imagery of the car on the back of the tow truck, those are going to haunt him. I fear that Matthew Guy will have to be consistent with what he did before the last election, which is to force the resignation from Parliament of one of his other MPs who got caught drink driving. And so I suspect Tim's going to have a very difficult 24 hours.
Is it salvageable? Is that salvageable? I mean, he's a young bloke.
Yeah, look, he's one of their few performers. He's one of the few guys that was able to actually get under the skin of Daniel Andrews and make an impact here in Victoria. But he's also made a lot of enemies on his own side of politics. I mean, the thing that shocked me yesterday was the Labor Party. They're not saying anything. This is coming from the people in the Liberal Party that absolutely hate Tim Smith. And so the real push and the real pressure is on Matthew Guy from inside his own team. He promised to distance himself from Tim Smith. He then rewarded him with a pretty plum position. And they're saying, well, you have to be consistent. If you want to be taken seriously as the opposition leader, Matthew Guy, you need to treat this bloke as your mate the same way you treated a bloke before the last election that wasn't your mate and you forced him out of Parliament. And that's the problem that Matthew Guy's got, and that's the real problem that Tim Smith's got this morning.
Okay. Stephen Conroy, good to chat as always. We'll talk to you again soon. Good luck today if you're having a bet.